Hello everyone and welcome to my 10-minute rose tutorial. I'll be walking you through how to draw and colour up this simple pink English rose. I've already laid down the line art for my drawing. Now you can do this by using a light box or a grid system, whichever is easiest or you prefer. And I'm now going to start selecting my colours. In today's tutorial I'm going to use a combination of Faber Castell Polychromos pencils and Caran D'ache Luminance pencils. I'm going to start now selecting my colours using my makeshift colour picker. It's just a piece of cardboard with a hole cut in it, and it helps me to zoom into my reference and isolate the colours a little bit easier. So here obviously I've got very pale, very pale pink, which will probably be my background colour, and a slightly darker pink, and then there's some sort of grey pinks in there which are mid-level, see, and some really sort of deep magenta-y pinks, and then we go even darker with some purpley kind of pinks here, and then darker still I can see almost some kind of very deep purple colours. So I'm going to start with those three. I can add to my colour selection as I go through the process, but we're going to start with the lightest colour as usual. Okay, that's the pale pink base colour laid down across the whole rose image. I'm now going to use this baby pink colour to block out the darker areas and start indicating where the darker shadowy pinks are. Just so you know, I will be listing all of these colours and the different types of pencils I'm using in the description, but when we go through the tutorial I'm just going to give a description of the colour itself, because you might not be using these pencils, you might be using a different set of pencils, so it helps you to pick your own version of this colour within your own pencil set. Use more pressure to create the darker pink areas at the base of the petals, and as you colour out, use less pressure to blend into the pale pink underneath and to create a gradient effect of darker around the base and then lighter towards the edges of the petals like this. Right, the next colour I'm going to use is this very pale violet pink. There's lots of violets and purples in the edges of the petals, and obviously in the darker areas it becomes quite purpley. When I lay these down and work into the darker areas and the edges of the petals, I'm going to blend it in to the base colour I've put down as best I can. So make sure that you use more pressure in the darker areas, and then as you move to the lighter areas, use a bit less pressure and even less pressure towards the lightest areas, so that you blend it in and you keep that kind of gradient from dark to light, and keep doing that throughout the whole of the rose. Okay, the next colour we're going to use is a sort of dark rose pink colour, and I'm going to go in very much the same as I've done with the last two colours. I'm going to use heavy pressure around the darker areas and blend out to the lighter areas. I'm going to focus on trying to really kind of punch out the details in the centre of the flower here, so I'm going to really kind of work into these darker areas to accentuate the lines and the petals here. Right, next I'm going to use this scarlet red colour to add even more depth to these darker shadow areas at the base of the petals. I'm going to stick primarily to the darkest colours and add another layer over these. I'll be doing a little bit of blending, but I'm mainly going to stick to the darkest zones that I've created on the rose. Okay, that layer is done. Now there are very small triangles of light and dark green at the base of these two petals here, so I'm just going to go in with this mid green and this kind of yellowy limey green and try and pick up those two little squares of green right at the base of the petals. I'll go over them later with a bit of shadow, but I can still see them, so I'm going to add those in now. Right, the next colour I'm going to use is going to be this deep, quite dark red colour, and I'm going to work into the darkest shadowy areas at the base of the leaves, and this leaf here, which is quite a dark purpley leaf, and the red leaf, and just pick up on the darkest areas. The last two colours I'm going to use is this dark magenta purpley colour and this dark blood red colour. I'm using two because the dark blood red will pick out the darkest colours at the base of the petals, just the absolute darkest moments, and then the purpley colour will pick up on the purple on this petal and these little moments here. And that's it, the last layer of colour has been added, and that's our English rose drawing finished. I hope you enjoyed it.